Pete. It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
Hi, I'm civil rights attorney Areva Martin, host of Areva Martin in Real Time. Weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Be sure to tune in weekdays at 4:35 p.m. for your daily download on the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. The case is sure to have many twists and turns, and our program will be the show of record in the case of United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas. We have our own seasoned justice correspondent who will be checking in with us to keep you up to speed on the daily details of this high-profile legal case. Be sure to tune in to Areva Martin in Real Time weekdays at 4:35 p.m. for United States versus Mark Ridley Thomas, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Order in the court.
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. So glad to have you with us on this Monday. This month marks the 20th anniversary of the unprecedented attack at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait, where Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack was present. The attack was the first of its kind in U.S. military history, as the perpetrator was a fellow American soldier. The attack claimed the lives of 2 soldiers while injuring over a dozen others. C.S.M. Womack, an African-American soldier, was an eyewitness to the attack, and he played a critical role in responding to the incident. 2 decades later now, believe it or not, I recall when this happened. 2 decades later, we are. And he joins us now to talk about this extraordinary attack on us, by us. C.S.M. Womack, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I got cut off there for a second. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm glad to have you. What caught you out there? Something I did? Something I said?
No, it just cut off on my end. I don't know what happened.
Oh, yeah, okay, got it. As long as we can hear you, as long as you can hear us and we can hear you, we're delighted to have you in for this hour. Let me go back 20 years. As I said, we were just talking with our columnist for the Washington Post about who pays attention to political news in this country and who doesn't. Some new data kind of pointing out, again, who's aware and who's unaware. And one of the things I'm concerned about, which I expressed often on this program, is a dumbed-down demos. Our democracy is in trouble when people are dumbed down and not paying attention to the news. And yet, on the other hand, I understand why people are cynical about our politics, cynical about the world in which we live. I say all that to say that I remember this from 20 years ago when it happened. And I wonder if you'll take us back to 20 years ago. We've got an hour, so we've got time for you to sort of paint a story for us. So I'll start with you unpacking for us what happened almost 20 years ago, and we'll jump from there, sir.
All right, I appreciate it. I want to dedicate this time to the fallen, Captain Christopher Seaford and Major Gregory Stone, and those 13 that were wounded as well. I appreciate the fact that you remember. I think it's a story, and perhaps you remember because of the business that you're in. I think the country as a whole and the world as a whole is not aware of this. So going back, it was we go back to March 22nd, the day before, and we were putting the final touches on our plans to cross the border and enter Kuwait. At that particular time, it was going to be about 4 or 5 days from that date. And we'd been in this location in Kuwait for about 20 days and 20 nights. And finally, these finishing touches done and kind of celebratory in terms of not having to worry about that anymore. And it was supposed to be a pretty quiet and relaxed evening. Our commander went to bed at the earliest that he had the whole time we were there, which was about 10 p.m., 2200 hours. And our ammunition just arrived that day. My driver had bought me my ammunition. I had it on a table that I worked from. I was going to be loading magazines that evening on the computer, setting up bill pay, and watching Tiger Woods play golf. His plan was called now the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and literally fast forward, that saved my life by being God and Tiger Woods, and that I was watching them play golf. So I'm sitting there. It's a little bit after midnight now, and the flaps on the tent, the doorway, was some flaps, and I kind of hear something, and then I hear something again, and right in front of me is these sparks, and I'm thinking, we're in the land of not quite right, so that is a not quite right grenade that for some reason is sparking before it's going to explode. I'm not waiting around for the explosion. Our executive officer was in the tent as well, but he was in a position to see what I could see. I get up immediately, go to the back of the tent to wake up the commander because he was asleep by this time, a little over 2 hours. Get him up, say, get your boots on, we got to run out of the tent, the grenades are getting ready to explode. I wait a few seconds, count to three, we take off running down the middle of the aisle. I make it all the way outside, and he's not there. And I turn around looking for him, and by this time I know we're under attack again. Definitely thought that was a grenade, or knew that was a grenade, I should say. And so I'm whispering, trying to find him in the dark. And Tavis, this is I don't know if it's the darkest atmosphere you've been in, but I tell people, close your eyes, put your hands over your eyes, and put duct tape around it 30 times. That's how dark it was. Can't see nothing. Couldn't hear anything. I'm calling for him again in hushed tones, not to alert the enemy of my whereabouts. Shortly after that, of course, he's not there. Shortly after that, I hear a gunshot, and I know that it is our executive officer. I could hear him make a sound once he was shot. I pull out my pistol, cock it, and it doesn't fully cock. You pull pull it to the rear. It's supposed to cock. It's kind of making 2 clicks, and it only made 1, which meant there was no ammunition in the weapon. I had a magazine in there, but no ammunition, and that rendered me just defenseless. Mm-hmm. So I don't try to take on the enemy. I don't know. You can't see him anyway. So I go to our Tactical Operations Center, or TOC for short, to get a weapon and night division devices. I go in there, hollering for those things. Someone finally gets them to me. I put security in front of that doorway of the TOC, come back out with the weapon and knives, back over toward my tent to look for the commander and executive officer, and they're not there. I can't see any sign of any enemy at this time either. I go back to the TOC, get someone to search for the commander and the executive officer while I look for the enemy. Again, no sign of any enemy at this particular time. Mm-hmm. By that time, the attacker had thrown, even before I left the tent, a frag grenade in our tent that exploded. That knocked the commander back into the area where he slept, and that's why he didn't make it out when I did. I didn't notice at that time. And he had thrown a grenade into the second tent, and then the tent after that, and then shot someone else. So we're looking for this enemy. And I say there's no way that that they can be that good, where they can come into this camp, create all this chaos, shoot people, injure people, and there be no sign of them. Something changed in this camp overnight. Something had to have changed. You've been here 20 nights, and nothing like this ever come close to happening. And I had gone out to our guard post, and this camp is massive, massive. I had gone out to our guard post and checked on our soldiers, make sure they were doing the right thing. So I was confident that there was no issues there from a security perspective. So how did they get in?
Hold that thought 1 second. How did they get in? You're listening to now retired Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack. If you were around 20 years ago and paying attention to the news, you'll recall, because it was a huge story almost 2 decades ago. As I said earlier, the attack was the first of its kind in U.S. military history, as the perpetrator of this attack was himself an American soldier. And you hear Bart Womack saying, I wasn't sure what had happened, what had changed overnight. We'll pick up on that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Law Office of Jay Blacknell understands the stress and anxiety that comes with legal issues. That's why we support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Councilmember Mark Willie Thomas. Do you have a criminal or civil rights matter? If so, please give us a call at 310-469-9117.
Join Black Wealth Matters, an educational series as we explore and explain the Black College Athletes Playbook in a 5-part series starting April 6th. Dr. Davarian Baldwin, an award-winning scholar and author, seen in Time, CNBC, and more, helps us follow the college dollars. Coach John Mosley, fan favorite of Netflix's docuseries Last Chance U, covers the new world of the college athletes. David McGriff, one of the leaders in the NIL and sports world and owner of the McGriff Agency, explains NIL and the effects on Black athletes. Keisha Richardson gives the challenges of raising a Black athlete. And last, for the bonus series, we want to give athletes the tools to capitalize from their name and likeness with swimming bronze medalist from the 2021 Paralympics, Jamal Hill. There is no cost for the series. It's a live webinar. Questions are welcome. Register on KBLA1580.com.
Here at NerdWallet, we often see people struggle with financial decisions, like with Helen. Hey, Helen.
Hello.
Helen, you're all over the place.
I'm trying to pick a rewards credit card, and I've ended up, everywhere.
With NerdWallet, you don't have to feel all over the place. NerdWallet has side-by-side comparisons of top credit cards. So whether you need a card for groceries or travel, the smartest card for you is right there.
Wow. Now I'm in one place with the right travel rewards card. Nice.
Nice indeed. NerdWallet, the smartest decision for all your financial decisions.
Wouldn't you say it's time for a beauty refresh? Lucky for you, Ulta Beauty's 21 Days of Beauty is happening now. So treat yourself with up to 50% off bestsellers like Benefit Cosmetics and MAC Cosmetics. And say hello to new product launches from Fenty Beauty by Rihanna, Tarte Cosmetics, and so many more. That new you feeling is waiting at Ulta Beauty. But hurry, Beauty's biggest event ends April 1st. Shop in-store, online, or try curbside pickup today. Ulta Beauty, the possibilities are beautiful.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to now retired Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack, who was sharing with us a story of what happened 20 years ago in this attack in Kuwait that made all kinds of national news because we discovered later on, as he will lead up to, that it was an American who was behind this attack. But on this particular evening, when it's dark as 10,000 midnights, and he can't even see his hand in front of his face in the desert in Kuwait, he's trying to assess, trying to figure out who this attacker is, who these attackers are, how they're being so adroit inside of this camp. He is certain they have good security inside of. The camp is on lockdown as far as he knows, and yet somebody has gotten inside this camp and is causing all kind of havoc, and he's trying to figure it out. Pick up the story from there, Bart Womack.
Yes, sir. So I ascertained that something had to have changed in the camp, and someone says that interpreters came in the night before. Bingo, has to be them because that's the only change to our camp. Mm-hmm. So initiated search for those interpreters. Finally, they're found. They're pissing their pants, scared. They don't know what's going on. The interrogation reveals that they had nothing to do with it at all. Now we're back to square one of looking for insurgents that we have seen absolutely no resemblance of at all. At that particular time, our casualties had been triaged and evacuated from our area there where the tents are and taken over to the aid station that is on our camp. They've been further triaged there to be evacuated to the local combat support hospital, which is about a 2-minute aircraft ride away from the camp that we are on.
Mm-hmm.
So the first bird is loaded up. They take off. They move out to the combat support hospital. The second bird lands, and that is being loaded at the same time. While that one's being loaded, a huge fireball explodes in the sky, and something very enormous in size is falling from the sky. Everyone begins to think that we are under, the attack has been extended, and now it's a coordinated attack. We're being attacked from the ground and the air. But this is likely a Scud missile that has been shot down and fallen to the ground, likely by our Patriot battery. Now, our Patriot battery is not assigned to our camp. It's at a co-located camp. That's where the battery was located. So imagine them hearing explosions and gunshots from a neighboring camp, and then this fast-moving object is coming through the sky. Well, it has to be a Scud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's not a Scud. It is a British Tornado jet returning from a mission. So now we have shot down a friendly aircraft. So that's what caused the big fireball in the sky. At the same time, the second medevac helicopter is loaded and now ready to take off. As they just lift off, they're told that they cannot fly to the combat support hospital just 2 minutes away. They have to fly 75 kilometers to another combat support hospital. That is the helicopter and medevac bird that had Captain Christopher Seaford on there, who was shot point blank in the back. That likely cost him his life, all because he wasn't stable enough to make the ride even for a 2-minute flight to that nearest combat support hospital. So the investigation goes on, the search goes on to try to find who did this. Again, not the interpreters. Our commander was concussed from that grenade explosion in the tent. He finally kind of comes out of that. He's injured, has shrapnel to his arm, bleeding all over the place. As well, he got some blood from the executive officer who, when he was shot in the hand and went through both hands and then through his leg. So he says we need to get accountability of our personnel. That message goes out all over the radio. All of our subordinate units respond. And I didn't mention this before, but there's about 4,000 people on this camp.
Mm-hmm.
They respond in kind, and everyone is present and accounted for, except for one unit says, Sergeant Hassan Akbar is missing, so are grenades and ammunition. He becomes our number one suspect. But think about this. He has the same uniform as everyone else has on. He looks like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So there are several, there's several hundreds of people who look like you and I, and everyone on that camp of over 4,000 is wearing the same uniform, and it's dark. Although a light set had been restored, not an ideal condition to try to hunt for one person on a camp of that size.
Right.
So once we learned the name, and the name is kind of foreign to us, I'm co-in charge, if you will, of this entire unit. You know some of the names, but you don't know every name of 4,000 people.
Right.
So the name was kind of foreign, and so was his face in terms of who we were looking for. So myself and a major intelligence officer named Kyle Warren, we go outside of the tent to inform our leaders who we're looking for and what just materialized. He was checking bunkers all night, and he was going to each bunker, had his pistol out, saying, who we have in this bunker. But he realized when he came out of the talk this time that there was a bunker that he had not checked. So he goes up to that bunker with his pistol out, and as he was approaching bunkers all night, he would say, "Who do we have in here?" And then the people in the bunker would respond. At least one of them would respond on who they are. He approaches his bunker. He says, "Who we have in here?" The person says, "Sergeant Akbar." Well, Akbar doesn't know we're looking for him. So whatever turned him on to do this attack had now turned him off. He's in the bunker with the fellow soldier. So Warren has the wherewithal to holster his pistol, walks up near Akbar and beside him, then takes him down, catches him off guard, and takes him down, and that's how Akbar is captured.
Yeah. What do you? It's quite a story to hear you retell it with such vivid detail, which I am grateful for. So let me start interrogating now, if I can. What do you make of the fact that this American soldier who caused this attack? We'll go back into the attack in a moment, but let me start with this. What do you make of the fact that he so coolly and so calmly returned to the bunker?
Yeah, that was that was odd, and more importantly, that was probably God saying this needs to end somehow. It's the wrong thing, and it needs to end. I swear that I bumped into him in my actions that night of trying to get people in the right places to pull security in the area. I realized pulling security in that area, our location of the brigade headquarters is about smack dab in the middle of this giant camp. Mm-hmm. All of our subordinate units are all around us. So when we are pulling security to keep the enemy from getting in, those weapon barrels are pointed out in the vicinity of all of our other soldiers, unbeknownst to them at this time. So what turned them on and what turned them off? Well, I know what turned them on. I don't know what turned them off. Maybe he thought he could do it and then just kind of hide and blend in, and that, you know, the accountability process and all those things was not going to reveal who he was. And that's the only answer I have to that.
Yeah. But what turned him on? You said you don't know what turned him off, but you know what turned him on. Tell me that.
So what turned him on, unbeknownst to us at that time, he was, now we did know that of his faith, he was of Islamic faith. Mm-hmm. But when asked if that was going to be an issue for him before deploying, he said no. So it was over. No one expected anything like this, you know, based on his faith. In the trial, and I will come back to everything here, but in the trial, his diary revealed several anti-American things and a clear reason as to why he did this attack. Mm-hmm. You know, his diary mentioned things like destroying America was my plan as a child, and as a juvenile and in college, destroying America is my greatest goal. I do not like the military. They have too much control over people's lives. I suppose I am just anti-government. A Muslim should see himself as a Muslim only. His loyalty should be to Islam only. Anyone who stands in front of me shall be considered the enemy and dealt with accordingly. So, you know, it's things like that were in his diary before he deployed to Kuwait, and then, of course, you know, he, like the rest of us, was scheduled to go into Iraq.
Yeah. Let me pivot. I'm following you through this hour, and you're doing a good job leading. So thank you for that. But you are a leader, though, as a command sergeant major. So you're leading me through this hour, Bart Womack, and I'm following you. Let me pivot though, right quick. When you read those kinds of words from the diary of a fellow soldier, let me start by asking whether or not you think today or then, the U.S. military does a good enough job of screening people out. You said a moment ago he was asked, "Does his Islamic faith matter in the carrying out of his duties?" He said no, and that was it. And they moved on. They asked him one question. He said no. I practice the faith of Islam, but no, that wouldn't get in the way of me doing my duties. They asked one question. He gave one answer, and the process continued. My question now is whether or not, again, you think that the military does a good enough job of screening when they enlist officers.
good enough. I think that's probably the good word. I think we can always get better at it. I'm not involved in that process of that screening and that background check. Things have been revealed, obviously, since that time to increase that.
Right.
In 2021, January 2021, a fellow soldier at Fort Stewart, Georgia, joined the military and had planned to attack and blow up the 911 memorial and also be positioned overseas to kill fellow soldiers. So that was just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What we're talking about was 20 years ago.
Right.
So are we doing a good job? I would say that we need to do a better job, obviously.
Yep. You mentioned...
the military gets, like I said, the military gets people that they are a byproduct of society.
Sure.
One.
Yeah.
Two, I just spoke at a forum here about a month ago, and I told those current leaders at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne Division, where we were stationed, I told those leaders, here's one thing that we don't do as leaders. We're supposed to know everything about our soldiers, take care of their health and welfare and their families and all those things, but we do not go home with them at night.
Yeah.
We don't go home with them at night.
Yeah. That's the screening question. I got news, traffic, and sports in about 90 seconds. Let me ask this right quick. Were you, as as a command sergeant major, ever concerned when you were deployed in Kuwait about the mental health of your soldiers?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I knew that we were prepared before we left. If any issues in regard to that would have been brought to me to adjust somehow, and if that adjustment meant that they didn't go, then that would have been the call that I would have made based on their stability. But none of that was brought to me for any soldier.
Yeah. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports, I want to continue this conversation with now retired Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack, an African-American who was on the scene and went into action rather quickly 2 decades ago when for the first time ever in the U.S. military history, the perpetrator of an attack on us came from inside of us. Attack on us, by us, if I can put it that way. But there's more to unpack about this story, including how he processed the fact when all was said and done that it was an American who had done this to Americans. I want to get his take on that. I also want to probe his feelings on how he moved forward thereafter. Are you now looking with a jaundiced eye, a side eye at every other soldier, trying to figure out if they are capable of doing what Hassan Akbar had done? There's a great deal more to talk about as we continue looking back 20 years ago on this historic moment where, again, for the first time ever, U.S. soldiers came under attack by another U.S. soldier. You're listening to Bart E. Womack on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Reports say at least 3 kids are dead after an active shooting event at a Nashville middle school this morning. It happened at the Covenant Presbyterian School, a preschool through 6th grade school. This witness described the scene.
Thought maybe it was a bomb threat. And then there was so many police cars. And then the ambulances started coming away from the school.
Police confirmed the suspect was engaged by officers and is dead. Witnesses say they saw several students running and crying from the scene. Parents can be seen rushing to the scene and are being instructed to pick up their kids at a nearby reunification center. Vice President Kamala Harris is kicking off a week-long trip in Africa. Harris said the U.S. is committed to strengthening partnerships with African leaders. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Island from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
CHP is still working on the signal in Ontario on the 10 westbound before Haven Avenue. 2 lanes are blocked off and the 10 freeway comes to a halt at the 15 freeway. Got a crash in El Monte on the 10 westbound before Baldwin Avenue. Left lane taken away there, so you're stop and go from Sunset Avenue. And got another crash on the 10 freeway. This one in Santa Monica, 10 westbound past Lincoln Boulevard. It's on the right-hand shoulder, but traffic does slow down at the 405. Crash in Culver City on the 405 northbound for National Boulevard, adding to the slow drive for the 90.
If April is showering your company with open job positions, check out Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job today and get hiring by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James returned to the lineup Sunday, but the Lakers lost by 10 to the Chicago Bulls. LeBron made his first appearance since February 26 after recovering from a tendon injury in his right foot. LeBron played 30 minutes off the bench and finished with 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 turnovers. 3 schools will be making their first ever appearance in the NCAA Final Four on Saturday. San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, and Miami, Florida. UConn will take on Miami in one semifinal. San Diego State and Florida Atlantic meet up in the other one. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with one of the panelists, the owner of Kids Love. Take a listen.
So Kids Love, KIDSLUV, is a first-to-market zero-sugar, vitamin-enhanced functional beverage for kids.
So the zero sugar is really important because if not, the sugar gets on the teeth, it can cause cavities. So as a mom, I love this vitamins and hydration in one. Tell us what's happening here with Chase Bank today.
So I would say, I think what Chase is trying to do is create a community actually for entrepreneurs, a place where people can go. They have the space to do it. It's a beautiful space. And to be able to have these conversations. There are so many benefits to being a women-owned and certified business, from a standpoint of getting into stores, not paying the slotting fees of what it takes to be in stores. So I think Chase is trying to bring awareness to a lot of the things that people just don't know about, that not only the bank can help, but outside of the bank, their relationships can help create.
That's beautiful. And I know, this is how we build equity in communities of color, is kind of spreading that information and that knowledge. So thank you for being here today and doing your part and letting these women know that it is possible.
For KBLA 1580, I'm Maisha Cairo in the community with Chase.
Personal Law Office is your go-to attorney for criminal cases. That's why we support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Council Member Mark Ridley Thomas. Call me at 424-261-2075 if you're facing any criminal offenses.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Continuing our conversation now with retired Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack. In case you've just tuned in, we are talking about this month, marking the 20th anniversary of an unprecedented attack at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait, where Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack was present. The attack was the first of its kind in U.S. military history, as the perpetrator in this incident was a fellow American soldier named Hassan Akbar. The attack claimed the lives of 2 soldiers, injuring over a dozen others, and C.S.M. Womack, an African-American, was an eyewitness to the attack, played a critical role in responding to the incident, and 2 decades later he's written a book about the attack that came out some years ago called Embedded Enemy, The Insider Threat. But now we've arrived at the 20th anniversary of this horrific incident, and we are looking back on what happened then and what, if anything, we have learned since that time, and whether or not the military is doing better by the mental health of its soldiers, doing better by screening persons who sign up for military service. And you heard Command Sergeant Major say moments ago that just 2 years ago we had another incident similar to this. Thankfully, it was caught in time, but a person who enlisted specifically, we later learned, to do harm to military soldiers. So how are we doing these days when it comes to signing people up for military service? We're discussing that and a great deal more. I want to come to this now, Bart Womack, and that is the question I teed up moments ago about how you initially processed. You've had 20 years to think about this now, but how do you process, looking back on what happened 2 decades ago, that it was, in fact, an American soldier who did this? As I said earlier, that this extraordinary attack on us was, in fact, committed by us.
Yeah, Tavis, I immediately came to the conclusion that no profession, level of education, ideology, or religion is above reproach. There is no profile. The insider threat is closer than you think. And so we were probably led to believe that the person looked a certain way, they did certain things, and all that. So that's a 911. We were looking for something different. Mm-hmm. That's just the way we were. That's the way we were ingrained, if you will, to look for something completely different. And guess what that did? That opened up the door for something else completely different, because we're looking the other way.
Right.
We never thought that it would be right in our backyard, sleeping right beside us, in the field, right beside us on the ground as infantrymen, and was right there. So the military wasn't ready for this. The world wasn't ready for this. We thought the person was supposed to look like someone completely different, and that is clearly not the case. The person I described to you from Fort Stewart, Georgia, 2 years ago was a white gentleman. Mm-hmm. So we got to get off the fact that they look like something, that they all look like something, that there is a profile. There is no profile.
Yeah.
Anyone can be radicalized at any time to do anything. Yeah. That's where we need to get to. To touch on that from a different perspective, this was a terrorist attack that still today the military has not embraced and still has not called this a terrorist attack. So that was the first problem. They all said in that trial, they all heard everything that I heard. They all heard those excerpts from the diary. If that was in Osama bin Laden's diary, then it would have been totally different. He's a terrorist and he's attacking us, so he's an enemy. Mm-hmm. But for some reason in this diary, this guy is not called an enemy of our country. So that was the first mistake. By getting ahead of that at that time and calling it what it was, I think would have saved a lot of what's going on now. And what I did mention, that 6 years later, in 2009, there was another attack, but this one happened on U.S. soil at Fort Hood, Texas, where another person of Islamic faith,
sure.
And keep in mind, Tavis, faith doesn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Religion does not pull the trigger. People pull the trigger. Now, they may be radicalized.
Yeah.
And they may follow a certain ideology. They may follow jihadi ideology or any other ideology for that matter. But religion does not pull a trigger.
What do you make?
However,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your however. I'm sorry. Go ahead. However.
No. Yeah. However, this individual committed the attack. He was a military officer. He killed and wounded several people at Fort Hood, Texas in 2009. But again, not recognizing it, not calling it what it was, was still a failure, in my opinion, for the military.
Yeah. So we're
going to get into Purple Hearts here by the end as well, but we'll lead up to it with that story once we get into that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
let me ask you why you think, and I'm going to use the word reticent. You may want to go stronger than that, but why do you think that the military was then and is still now so reticent to call this, as you put it, what it is, to call these attackers enemies of our country, to call these attacks terrorist attacks? Why is the military so skittish about calling it what it is?
if I wasn't talking to you about this story and we met someplace in L.A. and I told you I served in the military, you'd probably say thank you for your service and all those things. No one wants that degraded. Right. Neither do I. Mm-hmm. I'm not attempting to do that. But I am about calling things what they are. In my opinion, you fix all that, then you don't have as many issues that can be happening down the road. So why are they doing it that way? I have no idea, other than there's rogues everywhere, Tavis. Mm-hmm. They're in every organization. They live down the street from you. You just don't know it yet. They live down the street from me. So, but owning up to it, just take responsibility for what it is. So that just means you fix the level of investigating and background checks that you're doing for people in the military. That's what you do. Are you going to catch them all? No, you're not going to catch them all. They can flip once they get in. But you got to do your part. But ignoring it and not identifying it is an issue.
Let me speculate this. Let me speculate, since you don't know and I don't know either, but let me speculate. I speculate that the military doesn't want to call it what it is, doesn't want to identify these persons as enemies of our country, terrorist attacks, because it then indicts them. It's an indictment on them either way. It's an indictment because, to your point, you can't catch everybody, and they didn't catch these persons at Fort Hood. The brother at Fort Hood, they didn't catch him. They didn't catch Hassan Akbar with you in Kuwait. They didn't catch him. And again, no institution is perfect. I get that. You get that. But there's something about acknowledging, when you acknowledge that they're enemies of our country, when you acknowledge that these were terrorist attacks from the inside, it says something about your own systems, and they don't want to cop to that because it's an indictment on them. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to cast aspersion on the military. I'm just saying they don't want to say it. They don't want to call it what it is because it ultimately indicts them. That's my read of it. You disagree with that?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. And furthermore, from in making decisions, in processing all those things, we were taught as leaders to get ahead of the situation. Mm-hmm. So had, right after the trial, just spoke out about it, called it what it was. It was a rogue, got in there, we'll do better to fix it. I mean, if you got to say that, then you got to do your best to do that. But trying to, I guess, cover it up by not saying anything, we're going to look through those holes every time.
Well, it's hard oftentimes for institutions, say nothing of individuals, to own up and to be responsible for, mistakes that were made, for things that were not caught, for oversights. And again, we are not human and divine. I take your point. We're just human. And so mistakes are made. But it just it seems tragic on a number of levels, disappointing, another word, that the military all these years later still won't take responsibility for what happened at Fort Hood. Some years ago, it won't take responsibility for what happened in Kuwait almost 2 decades ago, where you were present and immediately went into the right mode to try to figure out what had happened when Hassan Akbar attacked us from the inside. When we come forward, I want to come to this question that I raised moments ago that we haven't had a chance to tackle yet, and that is going back 20 years ago in Kuwait, when you and all of your fellow soldiers realized that this attack, again, had been perpetrated by a fellow American. How did you all look at each other going forward? I would think that this incident might have made everybody look at everybody a little differently. Everybody is looking at everybody with a side eye. You tell me when we come forward. You're listening to Barty Womack, now retired, Command Sergeant Major, on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates Women's History Month, spotlighting women leaders in our community who are creating positive change. This KBLA Women's Leaders Series spotlights Tina Sims. Please meet Tina Sims. Tina has been with Walmart for 10 years when she started as a department co-manager. To truly understand the culture of Walmart, Tina was asked to be placed in a role where she could learn the day-to-day business as a leader and to understand the people segment of the company. Tina was promoted to co-manager in a $100 million store and placed as the overnight co-manager. Mastering the process, she was promoted to fresh foods and consumable co-manager. Tina feels learning from associates who understood the Walmart brand accelerated her career and was appointed as the market champion for fresh foods and consumables. Tina has spent time learning the process and expectations of her department and has shared her knowledge with the entire market. Tina continues to be a student of the business to better herself as a leader and to help others advance their careers. Tina has been a store manager now with Walmart for 6 years. KBLA and Walmart salutes Tina Sims.
The all-new Nissan Ariya is a fully loaded EV. It's brimming with style and power.
Up to 389 horses of it.
Innovation and intelligence.
E-Force all-wheel drive.
It'll pin you to your seat.
Your very plush seat.
The all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan Ariya with E-Force expected availability early 2023. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. E-Force and 389 horsepower available on Platinum Plus. Nissan calculation using 1-foot rollout testing with long-range battery and E-Force only in sport mode with E-Step off. These results are for comparison only and should not be attempted on public roads. Drive responsibly. See nissanusa.com for details.
It's getting hot in here.
KBLA Talk 1580 is apparently the talk of the town. From the LA Times to our talk radio competitors.
Hey, there was a story in the LA Times about Tavis Smiley. Now he is back with his own radio station, KBLA, black-owned and oriented towards the black audience. So, Mo, considering your knowledge of Tavis in his audience, what's your take on this?
Well, I think in a general industry sense, I think it's always good when there are more outlets, there are more talk radio, there's more voices and representation. At that point, I think talk radio had been too homogenous for too long.
Real quickly, is it going to succeed, yes or no?
I think it's going to succeed.
You think?
There's a new sheriff in town.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down. Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Retired Command Sergeant Major Bart E. Womack is our guest. We continue our conversation now about what happened 20 years ago, where for the first time ever, the American military came under attack by one of its own. The brother's name then was Hassan Akbar, and Command Sergeant Major, again, now retired Bart E. Womack, was on the scene and went immediately into doing what needed to be done to track down this particular assailant. And indeed, he was, in fact, tracked down. Sometime later, he was on trial. Again, if you were around a couple of decades ago, you remember this, but it's seminal because it had never happened prior to in American military history. And we're talking with Bart Womack, who was present on that particular night. So, Bart, I want to ask how you, and to your knowledge, how your fellow soldiers in Kuwait 20 years ago processed the fact that this attack happened at the hands of a fellow American soldier. How did you all continue to operate with each other in those spaces?
Yeah, that shock lasted for a minute, Tavis.
Yeah.
I can speak for myself. Obviously, we hadn't even begun to cross the border to go into Iraq yet. In fact, after this happened, we got orders. Our orders got moved up, and we crossed the border roughly 48 hours after this happened. Mm. So I didn't allow anyone to really kind of think about this from that perspective. Obviously, they had their own minds to deduce whatever they wanted to. But I probably set the stage a little bit, and this is what I thought. This is what I did based on this. So when he shot Christopher Seaford in the back, he kind of ran into the dark. When someone was coming out of the tent, they just saw a figure move away and run in a direction, couldn't identify him or anything like that. But then one person said that they saw two people run away once Christopher Seaford was shot. And like he's falling and people, saw two figures run. So even though the CID in their investigation said, no, there was only one attacker, there was no accomplice, I knew the individual who said he saw two. He and I had served together before, so I had to believe him based on that, even though CID said otherwise. So my actions for the command was in the same area where this attack happened, that I had a platoon of our own soldiers come to our area, and they guarded the tents in our area from the rest of the unit. Right. Again, look at it as we're smack dab in the middle. All the rest of our command is encircled around us. So, in essence, they were guarding us, the headquarters, from the entire rest of the command.
Yeah.
So, you talk about my trust level. No, I didn't trust. Yeah. To go forward, we finally get into Iraq. We're there for about a week or so, 10 days. And where we're staying, myself, the commander, and the acting executive officer, because our executive officer was wounded and sent back to the States for care.
Sure.
Someone comes into the area where we are. I hear these feet shuffling on the floor, and he comes in there and he says, I asked him what he's doing over there, because he didn't sleep there. And he says, I'm just looking around. Well, my mind goes back to the soldiers saying that there were two people. Like, what's this looking around? You're in the wrong place looking around. I mean, that dude got it up one side and down the other, things I can't even begin to say on your radio show. So 2 days later, here comes some more feet shuffling about the same time. And it's dark. He comes in. And now I'm like, well, you didn't listen the first time. I pulled my pistol out, Tavis. I cocked it. I have ammo this time. The person turns the corner. I place it right smack dab in his chest. And then I see this white thing emerging in its envelope, and they say, Sergeant Major, here's your mail. So I'm sure they thought I had just completely lost it by that time. But here's the deal. You know, this dude tried to kill me.
Yeah, I got you. I
like,
got you.
You almost got me once.
No, I got you.
It wasn't going to happen again.
I hear you. I hear you. When we come forward in our remaining moments, just a few minutes left in this conversation, you heard him say a moment ago, the Purple Heart that he wants to get to. He's working on something that he wants to share with you, and I wanted to share with you vis-a-vis the Purple Heart. And we'll get that from Bart Womack when we come forward in a moment on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 85% water, right?
85% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure concentrated cleaning ingredients. Don't pay for water, pay for clean.
Save $10 when you spend $30 on Tide and Downy. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent. Must buy at least one participating Tide or Dreft detergent item, plus at least one participating Downy and or Bounce scent booster, liquid fabric softener, or dryer sheets. Prepaid card by mail. Visit pglaundryrebate.com for terms and conditions.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
About 4 minutes left, just 4 minutes left in conversation with retired Command Sergeant Major Bart Womack, and I want to give him these last few minutes to talk about what he's working on vis-a-vis the Purple Hearts that you referenced earlier, Bart Womack.
Yeah, so I submitted those killed and wounded for the Purple Hearts. It was kind of hearsay that had happened or not prior to me doing it, so I just took matters into my own hand to do that. Created a packet, try to get some advocates and champions on board in terms of politicians, and got a congressman to assist with that. Letter went to the Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Air Force, and this went to them in October of last year, October 2022. They responded in January this year, saying the Purple Hearts were denied. So they were denied denied because they said Akbar was not in communication with a foreign terrorist organization and that the attack was not inspired or motivated by a foreign terrorist organization. So I disagree with that. What needs to be in the regulation is adding inspired and motivated by jihadi ideology, jihadi radicalized, and American jihad inspired and motivated attacks.
Yeah. See how this conversation comes full circle? It comes full circle. We were talking moments ago about why the military would not acknowledge that these persons are enemies of the state, that these are, in fact, terrorist attacks, even though they're attacks on us, by us. You and I were speculating aloud on this radio program why the military won't acknowledge that. Well, now it comes full circle, because if they don't acknowledge that, then these two persons that you're fighting for to receive the Purple Heart aren't eligible for the Purple Heart because it wasn't an attack from the outside. He was not, Hassan Akbar was not, to your point or their point, not engaged with outside foreign sources or foreign personnel to engage this particular attack. But these dots connect. I see it so clearly. I assume you do as well.
Yes, and for the record, 2 killed, 13 wounded, so it's a total of 15 that will receive the Purple Heart.
Right.
And this happened in 2003, so just updating the regulation, you're just ancient. But again, if you embrace the fact that it happened, then you'll understand, what the process is, that he's the enemy of our country. Like I said, if any other terrorist would say this, Osama bin Laden arguably said, it is my goal to destroy America. But if he does it, those people are going to receive Purple Hearts, or he won't be able to do it anymore, but you get my point. So it's just that acknowledgement of the fact that this young man was a terrorist.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple. Anyone speaking those words, if I would have started by saying, if someone said these things, would they be an enemy of our country, they would say yes.
Yep. I'll leave it there, and that's the real problem. The real problem is, and I could spend hours talking just about this one issue, and that is what happens to our democracy in the months and years to come, so long as we have a particular image, a particular view, a particular profile. Bart Womack said this earlier. If we have a particular view, image, and profile of what a terrorist is, or who a terrorist is, or what they look like, and you don't want to be more liberal in that definition, you don't want to accept the truth, we got a problem. And that's true writ large in this country. The greatest attacks we are under these days are not from outside, they're from inside. White supremacist attacks, no less. But we don't want to see terrorism for what it is, and that's why these 15 persons, at the moment at least, are not eligible to receive the Purple Heart, primarily because the military doesn't want to accept the reality and the truth of the fact that these were, in fact, terrorist attacks, certainly the one 20 years ago in Kuwait. Command Sergeant Major Barty Womack, now retired. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your witness. Thank you for the efforts you're engaged in now. We appreciate you taking time to talk about it for us, with us during this hour. Sir, all the best to you.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
My great delight. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley, after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA